Welcome to episode 114 of Stageworthy. I'm your host, Phil Rickaby. Stageworthy is a podcast about people in Canadian theatre featuring conversations with actors, directors, playwrights, and more. If you're new to the podcast, please consider subscribing on Apple Podcasts, Google Music, or wherever you get your podcasts. I'd also love it if you could leave a rating or comment about why you enjoy the show. Your comments and ratings help new people find Stageworthy. If you want to drop me a line, you can find Stageworthy on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at StageworthyPod, and you can find the website at stageworthypodcast.com. And if you want to drop me a line, you can find me on Instagram and Twitter at Phil Rickaby, and my website is philrickaby.com. My guests this week are actor Emmilia Gordon and director Wes Berger of Criminal Girlfriend's presentation of the world premiere of George F. Walker's Fierce, on now at the Red Sandcastle Theatre in Toronto.
What is fierce? Who wants to tell me what fierce is?
Like the definition or the play?
No, I know the definition. I've read about the definition, but what's the play?
The play.
Maybe you'll be better at talking about it than spelling it.
Oh, jeez. Wow.
I'm busting balls. I'm sorry. I'm
we
so
are
sorry.
recording.
I knew. I shouldn't have said it.
No, because now we have to go into it.
Okay, we're going to go into it a little bit.
Well,
George was way more empathetic about it than I was.
He's so nice about it.
Yeah.
You're just being a real jerk
Okay,
in front of everyone.
you tell the story.
So Fierce is it's a two-person play, two-woman play.
I think we need to stop before.
But and we've been rehearsing a lot, and you know there was a poster. I've done the poster, and we wanted to do a Facebook ad. So I was like, oh, I gotta do it. We were gonna go run lines, and I just finished work, and I was like, okay, I'm just gonna do this real quick. And then I sent it out to everyone, being like, here it is, everybody. Here you go. Check it out. And Wes writes back, going, yeah. So the title of the play is spelt incorrectly.
But the problem with that is like you can't change the event name.
No. It was a pre-one that I had done, so I can change it.
Okay.
But then I wrote back being like, oh my god, I'm so sorry. This is so embarrassing. And then George, Mr. Walker, wrote back to me being like, it's okay. I spell it like that half of the time, especially when I'm tired. And I was like,
that's fine.
I was like, okay, thank you, George. My director was just like, you spelled it wrong.
So George F. Walker says it's okay that you misspelled it.
In the context of our our production team knowing that I spelt it wrong and sent it out to them.
Okay.
Not out into the public.
If that was the case, you're out.
Oh,
right? Yeah.
I would be out a long time ago
totally.
if that was the case. Okay. You know, I have checkers, a couple of them, you know.
Spelling checkers?
Yes,
really?
yes. I am not a great speller.
Not a great speller.
Yeah, it's, that's just my life. That's just who I am.
I feel bad.
To deal with it.
I feel bad now. But I did, good. Just to be
throw
clear.
her under the bus.
I did throw her under the bus
that you feel bad.
in public, but I did not say, so it's spelled incorrectly. I just said, very, factually, the title is spelled incorrectly, as is the hashtag.
Oh, so twice? Both times?
It
actually was spelled 3 times. Twice incorrectly, once correctly.
Hey, so that's like 2 out of 3. I'm okay with that. That's pretty good.
There you go.
I think that's a pretty good deal.
So, now that I've sidetracked everything with this story, so Fierce is a two-woman show.
Yeah.
As the cat violently attacks you.
Cat is also fierce.
Getting the hook.
Cat is extremely fierce. So what is the story of Fierce?
I would have to say the story of Fierce, without giving too much away, is about 2 women in dire situations realizing and accepting that they both need each other to continue on.
Okay.
I would say that.
That's like a thematic description.
Yeah.
Sure.
In terms of story, the character that Emmilia plays, Jane, has found herself just recently released from jail for a sort of self-destructive and potentially destructive to other people act that she's done.
Yeah.
She's in a therapist's office, and she needs to get the all clear from the therapist, or else she's going to be sent back to jail.
Okay.
So it's a therapist and a patient. That's how they start, at least. and where they go, like with a lot of George's plays, it's a real wild ride.
It is, yeah.
Now, this is a premiere of a George F. Walker play?
It is, yeah.
Okay, so I have to ask
production.
how that came about.
I think Emmilia should answer that, right? Because this is...
Yeah, the story is George did a workshop, basically, where you could go and work with him for a week on his plays as an acting workshop. And I saw it, and I think it was the very first one, and I applied, and I got in, and then... Marisa Crockett, she also applied and got in. And so there was about 8 of us there. And I think it was just the first people that applied, the first 8 people. Sure. And so we did this sort of week-long workshop, and we just sort of connected on the first day as people over this woman talking badly about Vancouver. And I was like, I'm from Vancouver. I really don't appreciate you talking about Vancouver that way. I really actually like the city. Thank you very much. And she sort of like... made eyes with me and was like, oh my, this fun. And I was like, oh, friend, huh? And then George was talking, he sort of mentioned something about a two-hander that he had for women. And we were talking about it, and I was like, we just sort of went up to him and was like, hey, can we read that two-hander? Like, we kind of want to do a living room series, and could we read it? Just maybe living room. And he was like, yeah, go ahead. And got his daughter Kate to give it to us. And we started reading it, and we really liked it. And then we sort of were just like, let's ask George if we can do it. And so we asked George if we could do it, and he was like, yeah, go ahead, you can do it. And then it sort of just like rolled from there of being like, we want to do it in our living room. Well, now we kind of want to do it as a like production. Now we want to do it in a theater. And then it kind of went through a couple different stages until finally, we had a producer, and then we went out, and then she left, and then we got Kate Walker, George's daughter, on board who, as one of our producers, and then Wes came on board with the recommendation from George. And so that's sort of how like the team all came together. And from that, we were like, okay, well, let's get a space, and we booked a space, and then it just sort of all steamrolled from there. Yeah.
Very cool.
It's been so that happened like last April. So it's been,
So it's kind of a whirlwind sort of thing.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, it really has, because Emmilia says last April, but really, this really kicked into gear in December.
Yeah, I'd say beginning of December.
We had really our first reading as a team in December. So in theater economy, I think it came together very fast.
Yeah.
Just to refer back to your question too about it being a first production, one of George's plays. This is the fourth first production of his that I've directed. Okay. So we've been collaborating pretty closely about the last like 4.5 years or so. I directed his play Criminal Genius at for a company called Lindisfarne Theatre Projects that used to be out of St. Catharines, Niagara Falls. And then he came the following year to direct a new play of his, and I was his assistant director. And I ended up replacing an actor in the show and also acting in it. And since then, this will be the first production of his that I directed, and I've also acted in 3. So it's been like, I've basically been immersed in his work for the last like 4 years.
That was your master plan.
My master plan? Oh yeah, right. Thanks a lot. Okay, that's fair. That's fair.
We're even now.
Now spell plan. Very good.
L-A-N. Yes.
Actually, man, that I did have. Yeah, there was. No, that was not my master plan. I did not. Believe it or not, I did not want to come in 4 days before first preview and have to learn a part and replace an actor. That is absolutely not.
That sounds like so much fun.
That's not ideal.
It ended up being okay, but it was every time I've worked with George, it's a real adventure. But that was a real adventure. It was like a good way to sort of set the tone. And I mean, he's always been my favorite playwright. The playwright who I loved studying in school, and I acted in his play Better Living when I was in university. So it's been really amazing to get to do all these new plays, these first productions. It's been just an incredible honor, because I don't know if you know, but he he directed all of his Canadian first productions for like 25 years. It's only in the last few years that he's started backing off of directing. So
yeah, we wanted him to direct, and he was like, I don't want to direct. I
mean, I would love to ask him, but is he just like tired of directing and he just wants to write, or?
He doesn't.
He's tired of directing. Absolutely.
Yeah, he's like, I'm 70. I don't want to.
He's tired of directing. Even in this process, there's times when he'll come in and be like, "Oh, like I can't take any more of this," and
really
leave.
Yeah, it's really great for our.
No, but it's good though. That's something he actually taught me as a director. That sometimes it's good for a director to go. That sometimes you have to like let the actors work something out on their own, or not have them be too dependent on you.
Sure.
But I mean, he for 25 years, he directed tons of his own stuff.
Yeah.
He directed all of the Suburban Motel plays.
Right.
6 plays at the same time.
Yeah, time and place.
Can you imagine what that would be like? So, but he's very, he's a collaborative part of the process. Like, he'll come in, today, for instance, he came and watched a run, and the run was a good one, and he saw something in the play and changed the beginning of it.
Oh shit!
Another time, he's come in and changed the ending. It's a very live process. He'll keep changing things. He writes specifically to the actors he's working with too.
Yeah. And he hears it out loud, right?
Yeah.
He's like, this doesn't make sense now. This doesn't make sense in this version that I wrote versus the version, I wrote 2 months ago, and then he'll change it.
As a playwright myself, like the value of hearing something read out loud, like as soon as possible and as often as possible every time you do a draft, because things don't click until you hear it, and then it's different when you see it. You're hearing it and seeing it, and then it's like, oh, now this through line doesn't work.
And also when it's like committed to, and you're not just reading it, but you're really feeling it, and you're in the shit of it. Then that changes it as well.
Yeah, he's particularly for a playwright. All the playwrights I've known and worked with, he changes things like his play Dead Metaphor, which already was published and already had productions. I did it in at Theatre Aquarius, and for this one actor who was playing like my mom in the play, Catherine Fitch. She's a great actor, and he wrote on her. He wrote a huge speech that hadn't been in the play before. That's a play that's theoretically for another player. It would be finished. It's been published. It's had a production already.
Well, that's the thing, is a lot of times when something is published, you feel like, oh, I can't.
Yeah,
it's done. I can't adjust it. Even though I know for myself, like if something is still in performance or I'm performing it myself or whatever, you sort of.
You tweak it.
You can tweak it. And then as soon as it's written down, you're like, wow, that's it.
Yeah. That's definitely his attitude, that it's always like a work in progress, which also I think really serves actors, because you don't feel like when you're working with him that it's like there's some thing that you have to fit. He wants you to sort of honor the characters for sure,
right?
But also, it's not like there's some abstract notion he has in his head. Like he was, as a mentor to me as a director. Yeah. He was very clear about that, and it taught me a lot. Right? He said, "You don't direct the play in your head. You direct it off of the people in front of you." Very helpful.
Sure.
So it wasn't like he's like, because otherwise the actors will feel like they're never pleasing you, and then they'll just try to please you.
It's funny because when I was in theater school, we had a director who was one of those, I plan everything on paper before we even go into rehearsal.
Yeah.
And actor, there'd be this complicated stuff, and actor would get confused. He'd be like, but it works on the paper. What's wrong with you? And we'd just be like, but it doesn't make sense.
That's deadly.
It's a terrible way to work.
Yeah, they're not marionettes.
Yeah.
It's how can you get the most out of a person when you're, treating them like a puppet?
Yeah.
So I think, I don't know, my notion at least is that you try to like empower people, you create a place where they can be free, and then then they take ownership of it.
I think that was a really good like turning point for me, just because the story of Jane, my character, is one that is really like real, but also like very deep, very emotional. And I was like, can I do this? Is this possible? And Wes gave me great advice that he got from George, as being like, it doesn't matter, like exactly the same thing. Like, it doesn't matter who you think the person is in your head. Mm-hmm. You have to be true to the character. Right. You are the character. It doesn't matter what you think they should be or who you think they are. But if you're true and you're honest and you're there and you're present and you're connecting with the other person on stage, then all that stuff goes away. Mm. And so that for me was like a really like, oh, okay, fuck, let's do it.
Because, I mean, it could be intimidating, right? No, fuck yes.
Okay, thank fucking God.
It's the magic of the podcast, which means that we don't have to worry about somebody saying, you can't say that.
Thank
None of those fucking rules. But, I mean, I was thinking about, you know, because George F. Walker is a name that sort of makes a lot of people Canadian theater, like, you know, you sit up. George F. Walker, you know.
Famous Canadian playwright.
So, and, you know, he's in all of the, you know, if there's an anthology of plays, there is a George F. Walker play in there. Mm-hmm. So, Emmilia, is it intimidating to have him attend a rehearsal?
No. I mean, I think of him as like, you know, a mentor. Yeah. I don't put him on a pedestal. I do tease him a lot, which I think he likes and also doesn't like.
Today, he didn't even... he was trying to... Very seriously today. He's talking about the miniseries, the TV miniseries. No, Lonesome Dove.
Okay. Yeah.
Right? So he's watching Lonesome Dove off of YouTube and like telling me very seriously how it's great and I should watch it. And Amelia's like, "Are you talking?"
I was like, "Are you talking about City Slickers?"
And he thought this is what happens in my I talk. And this is what I say this and this is what people hear. And I'm like, no, she was joking. And he's like, no, she wasn't.
And I'm like, yes, I was.
He didn't know you were joking.
I was like, I'm joking. I was like, it just sounded
until I mediated that. He didn't know you were making fun.
No.
That's sad.
No, so, it's, I think when I first did the workshop with him, I was like, oh my God, George F. Walker. And then he just started talking and he's so down to earth and just real and he just doesn't say a lot. It's not about bullshit.
Sure.
Like, and when he was giving us like coachings on the scenes that we were doing, he's just like, drop the fucking bullshit. Yeah. And you're like, okay, like you just want to be real. Yeah. And like, that's really nice. Like, I just feel like he's a person who's wrote a lot of plays and he stumbled into playwriting. So it's sort of something that he wasn't like, oh, I'm going to be a playwright. It's like, it's just sort of something that happened in his life where he gets to tell these stories of, you know, sort of down and out people or people in the shit or blue collar, all those kind of things. Like he gets to tell those stories that don't necessarily get to be on stage that we go and see. And so he's just real. He's a real dude. He's a real cool dude.
He's a really cool 7-year-old dude.
He's like a 7-year-old man, you know? Like, he's grouchy and crotchety sometimes, and, like, he's also really, like, sweet and sensitive, and, you know, like, he's, Nice. So you know, it's cool. It's people always like, oh, George F. Walker. And you're like, yeah, but just, he likes it when you don't, like, put him on a pedestal.
But that's so hard for something like it's all one of those things, like, when we got the email from Kate, she's like, you know, we do this thing, we talk to some people, if you're interested in talking to people, I'm like, sure, I'll talk to somebody, and I'm afraid that she's going to say, well, George will talk to you, and I'm like, what do I say to George? But, you know, I usually figure it out, but there would be the moment of like, oh my God, you know, and that's just natural when you've seen his name on everything.
I know, me and my dad, we connected over George F. Walker's plays because we would read them and howl at like the realness and like the absurdity of like the characters, but we could also like identify them and you see them in your lives and so I get to my dad's like, oh, I can't wait. Like, my dad is going to freak out. I think my dad's going to fangirl a little bit. Yeah. Like, they're going to be like, oh!
It is funny, the sort of whatever celebrity playwright thing. Sure. I saw in the first process I did with George, the intern who specifically had kind of done it because she wanted to work with him. Her mother came into the theater and she was like, Mom, this is George F. Walker. And George was like, George is fine. You know,
Well, I mean, you do, as somebody, I even hate to say it, of his stature, you have to set that right away. You have to put people at ease, right? Because you can't be like, if somebody's going to start treating you that way and you're not comfortable with it.
Yeah. But, you know, you meet people who carry whatever kind of status, and it's like, they like that.
Sure.
You know, like they want that and need that.
Yeah.
Like he's definitely the opposite of that. Like,
sure.
like he wants to talk to you like this, like two people. That stuff just gets in the way.
Sure. And I've talked to some people that, you know, you could tell that, they like,
right.
They like this status. They like this thing.
It's like ego driven.
Yeah.
Which is, I think, not him at all.
No. He tells a story about how, like, someone, if he's working on a play, someone might have to go up to him and be like, you can't talk to that actor. They're afraid of you. And you can't interact with them because they just, like, don't hear. They just, like, go, like, Georgia fucker. Oh my god, he's talking to me.
Yeah. I had that one years ago. I interviewed Dana McIver, who was like one of my theater idols. And I went, I think the first 15 minutes, I was like, everything that comes out of my mouth is just bullshit right now.
Yeah.
I can't. And eventually there was like an actual conversation. But for a while there, it was just like, this is shit. Exactly that. Wes, one of the things that I always like to ask people about on the podcast is about how they got into theater and why they do what they do. So I'm curious about, as a director, how you got into doing this. Was this what you wanted to do?
Well,
why did you choose it?
I guess I'm a director-actor, and how I got into theater in the first place was I grew up in Niagara Falls, which had like no theater infrastructure. And when I was 17, just when I was finishing high school, my grandmother saw like a posting on Rogers Cable. It was like or Maclean's, whatever it was. Sure. It had like a posting for a independent version of A Streetcar Named Desire. And my Nana just knew I liked the play, so she loved her very much. You know, I miss her a lot. She said this is happening, and I went and auditioned for it, and ended up getting like a small part. I played Pablo, actually, one of the card playing buddies. I had my dad's friend who was Guatemalan like record the lines in his accent, so I could approximate a Spanish accent. Times have changed.
Yeah.
But actually that production was sort of self-produced by Stephanie Jones, who ended up, now she is the first female instructor at the neighborhood Playhouse or the Meisner Institute, one of those two places in New York. And her husband, Jason Kedja, who's like doing great as an actor in the city right now, they ended up running this theater company, and Graham Abbey like played Stanley in that production. It was like this crazy. So that turned me onto it, you know, and after just doing that, I applied to Brock for theater as like an elective. I thought I was going to be like an English professor or a lawyer or something. Sure. But then once I started doing theater, I just got heavily into it. And then by the time I finished, I couldn't foresee doing anything else.
What was your major at Brock?
It started off as English, and then eventually it was dramatic literature and theater. And that's all I wanted to do after.
Was your family supportive of that shift into theater?
Yeah, they were. They're very live and let live about it. And it's interesting. My brother, who's a musician and an actor too, has said to me before that he wonders if he would have done it if I didn't do it. Like no one in our family had done it. Now my cousin is a professional makeup artist too, so it's like there's like this generation of my family is doing a lot in the arts.
Sure.
Yeah, but I took a directing course in university, and that's I kind of always thought, once I started doing theater, I kind of always thought I wanted to direct. Like I would be in plays as an actor and be like, why isn't the director doing this or that? Just like a know-it-all jerk of an actor. I don't do that anymore, by the way, any directors who are listening. But as a young, arrogant actor, I would do that. Now when I'm an actor, I'm just so happy to be just an actor.
Of course, I think that we all, when we are young, arrogant actors, we fall into like, what is this fucking director doing? Like all this, like, what the fuck is going on here? What, he doesn't know anything, and you end up like thinking that you can do it yourself or whatever. And sometimes eventually you grow out of it and you realize that you know nothing.
Right.
Or you're like, oh, I should try this directing thing.
That's always a healthy place to start from.
Yeah.
I do have one. I do like this one anecdote, though. This one, I'm not going to name any names, but I was directed one time by this director who totally stayed out of my way, which I love as an actor. Mm-hmm. It's like, I'm going to make strong choices. You help me if I'm off or something. But he gave me a kind of a weird note. I thought, he's like, hey, when you're doing this, just what if you stand with your hand like this and shift like that? Stand with your hand on your hip and put your leg out. And I'm like, that's really weird. He doesn't normally say anything to me. Now he's saying this, and it's because I was doing a play that had actually been a movie at one point. So then later I watched the movie and realized that that's what the character did in the damn movie. And I was like, really? You're giving me the movie blocking?
No. That's nice. No. That's nice.
So that was pretty funny. But yeah, so I guess the last several years I've probably been directing as much as acting. Sure. Maybe even a little more. It's nice. It's nice to do both. You use like totally different parts of your brain.
It's amazing how many different parts of the brain go into this business. Like I did my first solo show a couple summers ago, and I wrote it and I performed it, and I figured this is going to be so easy to learn because I wrote it. And it's so not, because the parts of the brain that write it are completely different from the parts of the brain that need to remember it. And it's like, and you hit a certain point where you're like, who the fuck wrote this? And you're like, wait, I did.
Right. Who's that? The asshole playwright.
Someone get the playwright in here.
Yeah.
It's funny. That makes sense to me though, because it's like the what you want, right, as an actor is the freedom to just let the language serve you.
Yeah.
But the problem as the playwright, it can be in your head.
Yeah.
So like it's really hard to get out of that and just put it in your body. Yeah, I imagine
it was super hard. I had to come up with ways to learn this thing that I had never used before. Like recording myself do it and then like learn it that way.
Did you get sick of the sound of your own voice?
Eventually I stopped really hearing my own voice because I was saying it along with it. But I have to listen to my voice sometimes because of this podcast, so I'm a little less stressed about it. But I was like listening to my voice for like an hour at a time, say the same thing over and over again until I learned it.
Oh God!
Yeah, Emmilia. You and I have known each other for a few years. So, haven't seen you since
Edmonton Fringe.
Like what? Like
2012?
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, I think it's 2012.
You were doing
Progressive Polygamists.
Yeah, with
Miss Pippa Mackie. Yeah.
So how did you get into this theater thing? And also, how did you go from Vancouver to here?
Oh wow! Just all the stories.
Let's hit all the questions.
Okay, so I got into theater. My dad did community theater in Courtenay on Vancouver Island in BC, and he didn't have a babysitter for me at the time. Young family. Didn't have a babysitter, didn't have money for a babysitter. So he took me to rehearsal. And I think he was doing jitters at the time.
Okay.
And he just plopped me in one of the seats and was just like, just watch us rehearse. And I was like, okay. And so I just like watched them rehearse and just afterwards, and I was like, okay, cool. And then we got back in the car and he's like, so what'd you think? And I was like, I liked it. I liked this part when you said this and da-da-da. And then he did this, then you said that. And then he went over here and he did this. And he's like, whoa, wait, what did he do? It's like, well, he goes over here and goes around the couch and then you came down the front and then you say this line and then he would do this. And then he said this line. He's like, oh my God, she knows the play better than I do. And I was like, yeah, that's what I remembered. And he's like, okay, we're going to put you in some like community theater.
How old were you at this point?
I was probably maybe around like 5 or 6.
Okay.
Maybe around there, and I maybe like probably 6. And I did my first like community theater show when I was like 7.
Yeah.
Carole King's Really Rosie, loved it.
Who doesn't love Really Rosie?
Yeah, was it Carole King? Yeah, I think yeah.
Yeah, something like that.
And then it just sort of like did community theater and got into that and like just started making friends and was just in it. And then I did like in junior high, and I had a drama teacher, Karen Dawson, who sort of just said to me, she's like, you could do this if you wanted to. And I was like, I am doing this. She's like, no, like as a career, if you wanted to, like, I think you could do this. And I was like, you can do this as a career? Like, that make like yeah, but like
liar.
You can't do this as a career. That's also like
that's such a rare thing I've found for teachers to say.
Yeah.
Occasionally you find a teacher who like encourages somebody to go into the arts, but more times than not I find for myself, for example, if you mentioned that you wanted to go into theater or the arts to your guidance counselor at school, they'd be like, no, honey. Don't do that.
Oh, I have that story too. Yeah. I have that story.
But even, Phil, your like arts teachers,
my arts
like your drama teacher was like, don't do
They
it.
were more of an English teacher who sometimes did theater. And, they liked theater, but I don't think they really, they didn't know what the life is like, and so they rarely encourage people to go into it, I think.
I went and told my parents. I was like, Mom, Dad, like, I want to be an actor. And they're like, oh my God, she's going to make less money than a waitress. Like, oh, okay. And, but they were like, she has a goal. That's cool. Like, she has a direction. Like, she has something that she's passionate about. Yeah. And she's pretty okay at it. I mean, I've gotten better. And they're like, okay, no, actually, you're pretty good.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's... And then I ended up going to Studio 58 at Langara College in Vancouver, and did 3 years there. I took a term off. They're like, go live your life. And I was like, but I do theater. They're like, yeah, go live life. And then I came back and I was like grounded and like gone to Europe, and it was good. And I actually got to do a show with Antony Holland before he passed away. And it was really cool to like connect with him and work with him. And he'd bug me so much. He'd be like, I'd come off and do from doing my scene, and he'd be like, "You're really going to do it like that?" And I was like, well, yeah, Antony, I was thinking about it. He's like, well, you wouldn't get away with that when I was teaching this, when I was at this school. I was like, okay, thanks. Do you want your tea now? And he's like, yes, please. And
Was that for real?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. But he was like, he kidded with me, but I could take it. So it was nice. And then like, he would be on stage. We were doing You Can't Take It With You. Robert McQueen was directing it, and he forgot all of his props and his slippers and everything, and I was playing the maid, and he'd be like, Rita, can you go get me all of my slippers and paper and everything? And I'd be like, righto, Granddad. And then I run off stage and like, Antony forgot all his props and things. Where are all his things? Give me all his things. And like, right back on stage, and here's all your things. Yeah. But nice. Yeah, it was fun. It was fun. And then I stayed in Vancouver for a long time, about like 13 years I was there. Yeah. And then I got into my car and I drove across the country. And I ran out of money and I accidentally moved to Toronto.
Okay. So, were you heading to a certain place in your car, or were you just like deciding that you were going to drive until you ran out of money?
I just kind of decided to drive until I ran out of money. I didn't really...
That's a terrible plan.
No, it was just sort of a plan. It wasn't even a plan. It's not a plan. It wasn't a plan.
Just for the record, we don't advise this.
No, this isn't like...
This is a terrible idea.
This is a terrible idea. Also, don't do it at the beginning of September, so you drive into winter.
Oh, like, shit. That's really
after, like, terrible. Also being a West Coaster who, like, has never really experienced winter before. Okay. And so, like, last year was my first winter, and last year was pretty mild, and I was like, freaking so fucking cold, I can't dying. And people were like, it's not even that bad. I was like, it's so bad.
How did you do with the really cold winter here over Christmas? Or did you run away to Vancouver?
I didn't leave my house. When it hit, like, it was like minus 29 or something with wind chill or whatever, like, I was like, no. I have all of the things I need in my house. I had a little tiny room, and I turned the heat up, and I was under my covers, and, like, I didn't go anywhere. And, like, it just was like, nope. Yeah. No, I'm okay, thanks.
So, was there anything that made you, that encouraged you to decide that this was once you got some money from your car for your car, you didn't continue to drive across Canada, or what was it that made you think that decide to just sort of stay here?
Honestly, doing this play really did keep me in Toronto and meeting Marisa, and I don't know. I was looking for that. I need to expand. I need to experience new places. I want to work in Canada. Mm-hmm. I've had an amazing time in Vancouver. I have a couple Jessies, and those are the Doras of Vancouver. In case you don't know,
which are the Tonys of Toronto.
Of the Tonys of Toronto. Okay, just so we're all aware. Yeah. And I've had an amazing time. I have amazing community there, and I just want to see what else is out there? I want to explore more. I want to see more. And like Toronto has so much to offer, and I just feel like I've just seen like a tip of it.
Yeah.
And you know, doing this, being a producer and also acting in it,
sure.
I've gotten to know so many more people and sort of meet the community a bit more, and like that's really important to me. Yeah. Like I love community, and there's so much going on here. And yeah. So, and but it's not the center of Canada, just so we're all aware.
No, of course not.
But, you know, like Fringe was also a great way to explore, you know, Canada. And I wanted also to drive across the fucking country.
How many cities did you do with the Progressive Polygamists?
Vancouver, Toronto, Edmonton, Winnipeg, Saskatoon, Portland, Montreal. We, Just for Laughs Festival. Okay. We went to Fort McMurray.
Nice.
We traveled all over. Yeah. Good. Yeah.
And you guys kept getting along through the whole thing?
Oh my gosh, we're still best of friends. But it was that thing where we wrote it and we had every show, every city we did, we always added something new. Okay. We always just changed it for ourselves just to use our brains, and like it was fun. It was like a lot of improv and a lot of script and singing and cookies and buttons and fun times and Mercy Eve and Eden Grace, you know, they're close to my heart.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, Fringe is good for like getting out and seeing stuff that you wouldn't see anywhere else.
Yeah. I've also had people like being like, I recognize you. Did you do Fringe? And I was like, yeah, I did Fringe like in 2012, like 11. I think 11 we were here.
Yeah.
And they're like, yeah, I recognize you. I was like, Progressive Polygamists. They're like, oh my God, yeah, the Mormon show. Like, I remember that. And so it's cool to meet the community who also like remembers us. Or remembers that show, and I have
a cane once in a while because, you know, I only shave the beard for Keystone stuff, but occasionally somebody would be like, wait a second. With their hand to like block. Were you the last man on Earth?
Yeah.
You know? Yes.
Yeah.
So it's always fun when that happens.
Yeah.
What is one of the things that surprised you about Toronto?
The garbage smell.
Hey.
Sorry.
Fair enough. Yeah.
Actually, the heat. I couldn't.
The humidity.
The humidity. Yeah. Like, also, I'm so used to having ocean around that like you can go and just jump in and get cool. Mm-hmm. So that was for me was very difficult. Mm-hmm. What was something else that surprised me about Toronto? Yeah, the cold. Like we were like, it's cold. I'm like, I can handle it. And I was like, oh no, it's really cold.
There are colder places.
Absolutely.
You know, if you were in Edmonton for a winter, I'm sure that you would find.
I'd probably die. Yeah. I'm a very tender West Coaster. Okay, I like to be in the trees, and I can handle the rain. Yeah. When it rains here, I do have to admit, I love it. It's like this, like hearing the rain on the roof. I'm like, oh, that's the gems for me right there. Like I'm done. Yeah. I don't know what was surprising. It was a hard move. It was not easy. It was not an easy choice to stay. Going back to Vancouver is like my comfort safe zone. So staying in Toronto I'm feeling like it's a risk, but I feel like it's a good risk. Sure. And like, you know, close one door, open another, you know, that whole thing. So yeah, that's where I'm at. But I'm getting, just don't tell anyone, but I'm liking Toronto more and more.
Oh my God. Oh my God. Don't tell anyone. For Vancouver.
Yeah, especially
It's funny, Phil, like when Emmilia was talking about, you know, her transition before, I almost said, but I'll say it now since you brought it up yourself, like really, because she was on the West Coast just before she came back to do this, and she was pretty ambivalent.
Yeah.
You know? It was, and I could tell, like when we first sat down together, I was like,
what's going on with you?
Yeah. So we really had a heart-to-heart very early in the process where I said, like, you know, do you want to do this?
Yeah.
Like, is your heart 100% in this?
And at that point, it wasn't. It wasn't. And so we had a really, like, he's like, go and think about if you want to do this. Because this show demands you having full heart. And it's like taking it all in. And I was ambivalent. And then we had a heart-to-heart, and I was like, okay, nice. Like I'm in this. I am in this 100%. 110 fucking %. Like I'm going there. I'm doing it. There's no reason I shouldn't do it.
Right.
There's other than my own like stupid gremlin or whatever that is, whatever that ego or whatever it is.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I just like made that hard choice, and I'm very happy about it. I'm very excited to show the show and to showcase it and to have people come and watch it and go on the ride with Jane and Maggie and this like it's a roller coaster. There's some really tender, touching moments, and there's some really funny, fucked up shit. Like, I would have to say. And it's also really cool because it's two women. And it's not it's not necessarily about the men it's not about like the love of men or, it's about two women connecting. And our whole team, other than Wes and George, are women. We have a full team of women on board, and it's really cool. Just like, I think with this whole like Me Too stuff and everything like that, just to showcase strong women in the city and connecting and coming together and putting on something that's fierce.
I did it! Yeah! This whole 40 minutes so far has been you guys are performing this at the Red Sandcastle Theatre.
Yes.
Is there something that drew you to that theatre?
That's actually where we did the workshop.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's kind of apropos. So it's just like, full circle of like, that's where we met.
Yeah.
That's where we met George. That's where we asked him. That's where we met Kate. Yeah, so it seemed right. And it's also, it's a great intimate space.
I was going to say, it's like, as far as intimate spaces in the city goes, it's really only second to the Assembly is a little deeper.
Yeah.
You go deeper. So, like and a lot of people don't realize when they're thinking about it, how intimate it is. Yeah. And all of a sudden you're like, oh yeah, you're right there, audience. Like, I could sit on your lap.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
Which is scary and wonderful at the same time.
That's always, as a director, generally, but also specifically of George's work, that's always what I'm looking for. Actually, the last play of his that I directed was at the Assembly. And that's, I want, just like his writing, as little separation between the characters and the audience as possible. Sure. Like that's how he writes. It's, we're lucky enough to be able to put it in a space that, this show in particular, because it's just a two-hander, it's just in one location, it's essentially in real time. It's served immensely by having a really intimate space like that. So I feel like we're lucky to have a space like this. But we've been able to rehearse in it too.
Oh, that's so good.
Most of our rehearsals have been the first set we're right here where we're sitting.
In this room,
in this very room,
in my apartment, in my house, and then we moved to the Red Sandcastle and have been able to work there pretty consistently.
Yeah,
nice. That's helpful.
Oh,
to be
for
comfortable
sure.
in this space like that.
Yeah, it's definitely taken some of the about performing a show in a theater. But it's like so good. Yeah. It's so good because it's intimate, it's small. We're putting it on like a nice, we're doing not the traditional sandcastle setup. Yeah. We're doing a bit of a corner round.
Nice.
Well, Rosemary Doyle, who owns and runs the space, she's really hands-on. Like she can help, she'll help you move the risers however you want to. She'll help you hang lights. Like, I mean, she's really, she can do everything.
Yeah, she's willing to she doesn't have a vision of what that space looks like. So, the setup is not fixed. So, if you want to move where the audience goes, you can move where the audience goes. Yeah. Which is something you can't always do in a space.
Yeah, there's a fluidity that's really good. If you for this one, I think what we aim to do it in a way that we can really pull in people as close as possible.
Yeah.
So that's what we're working on. Julia Y. Kim is our designer, and she's sort of. She designed Oleana in the same space. That's why I wanted to work with her. I thought it was a really great design, my favorite design I've ever seen in that space. Sure. So once I saw that, I was like, this person.
Yeah. I think she's going to really transform it. Just like on the drawings that she's given us and stuff like that. It's going to be really cool.
That's very cool.
Yeah.
Where can we find you both online?
Where are you online?
Personally?
Yeah.
Well, I I'm on Facebook.
Mm-hmm. Do you have the Twitters? Do you have the
it's
the
funny.
website?
My assistant director, Martha, says that I need to get Twitter. This is a generational thing, right? Yes. She's 23, and she's like, "That's what you need. This is what
Twitters
people
and the
do."
Grams, my friend. You need the Twitters and the Grams.
I got them all.
You got it?
Oh, yeah.
I'm just on Facebook. I don't know. Is it weird? I have a personal email address, but that feels odd to give in a podcast.
But it's like I think there's like it's almost like you find the people who are like, no, should I? And there's everybody else. There's other people who are like, yeah, I have everything. I've got Snapchat. Yeah. I've got Instagram. I've got Twitter. I've got a website.
Yeah, I got all those things.
Yeah.
What are you talking about?
Emmilia, what do you got? What do you got?
I got a Twitter that's what is it? It's at Emmilia with 4 M's, so EMMMMELIA.
It's a lot of M's.
4 of them.
It's like M's.
So it's like
Emmilia. Emmilia. And that's also my Instagram. Mm-hmm. I love Instagram. I've also like to say that I've had Instagram for probably 8 years now.
Oh my god, early.
So
early
like I was like early into the Instagram before it became like really popular. I just want to like state that.
No, you gotta state that. You gotta stake your ground. I was like an early Twitter adopter.
Oh, that's great. Yeah.
So I know how that's like. That's practically the same thing.
It's practically the same thing.
Yeah, except
and
Instagram's a little better.
We also started a theater company called Criminal Girlfriends, which I love the name.
That's a good name.
Yeah, right? Criminal Girlfriends.
So what's the website?
Website is www.criminalgirlfriends.com.
Nice.
And that's where you can buy tickets, and it has all our bios and all that stuff up there. And
awesome.
Yeah. I designed it.
Well, Emmilia, what can't you do?
You know what? I can't spell.
Okay.
Well, nicely done. Back to where we started.
Way to bring it full circle.
No problem. That's what I'm good at.
Thank you so much, you guys. It's been so much fun.
Absolutely. Thank you.